Okay, so this is going to be my post-game Penn State Ohio State. So Ohio State was able to come out and get a interesting game, an interesting win over Penn State. I think that from Penn State's perspective, it was kind of a mixed bag of good and bad. I think going into the game, I think Penn State kind of knew that they were in over their head, that the ball was going to have to bounce their way. They were going to have to be able to do some things. They were going to have to have a favorable bounce or two, and I think they were able to get that today. I think that overall, from Penn State's perspective, moral victories aren't going to be tolerated, but I think when you're going up against, I would consider this a generational Ohio State team. I mean, perennially, Ohio State is a very, very good team, but this year they seem to be different. I mean, they got an elite quarterback, an elite running back, an elite uh, defensive line, and a very solid secondary. I mean, this is a very complete Ohio State team, and I think that you saw Ohio State really get out on Penn State early, and it kind of looked like it was 14-0. That probably could have been 21-0 at halftime. And once they got to 21-0 early in the second half, that kind of looked like to be do Penn State in and kind of be the end of the game right there. But Penn State comes down. They have a nice drive. Clifford gets hurt, but Will Levis is able to come in. And, they did some nice things with Will Levis, and I think Ohio State was kind of put off guard. I think they were really doing some nice things with not the opposite, but, with either Journey Brown getting it and going out wide with Journey Brown, or going with Levis. I think they really were able to do some really nice things. And Ohio State fumbles. Penn State gets it like the 15-yard line, and then they score on like the next play or the one after that. And now all of a sudden it's like 20. It was 21-0, and like 20 minutes later it's 21-14. And you're like, oh my god, like Penn State's right back in the game. Then Ohio State fumbles again closer to midfield. Penn State has a couple first downs, and then they kick a field goal. So Penn State was right back in the game. I think that Penn State did some decent things. I think the secondary played much better than it had in weeks past. I kind of expected that to some degree because I was looking at Ohio State's receivers, and they do have a lot. They have great receivers. I'm not denying that, but I think some of those other teams, they didn't really have a running game, so all they did was pass. Ohio State could run the ball, unlike some of those other teams against Penn State's run defense. I think that the secondary got beat at times, but I think that this was a better performance. I think that they were up for the game a little bit more. I think the front seven did a decent job getting pressure. I think the run defense got a little bit exposed today, a little bit more than it had. I don't think the run defense is bad. I just think that Dobbins is a really good running back, and then you have Fields. His presence of running the ball is really big as well. I think that the receiving game was all right. I think Justin Shorter had a couple catches, which was nice. I think Journey Brown at running back had a good game. But I think that Hamler was a little bit invisible. Freiermuth had a decent game. Dotson didn't do much. The receivers were a little bit off today, but I think part of that was just the offensive line has come a long way for Penn State. But when you're going up against, in my opinion, the best D-line in college football, it's going to struggle. And you saw that as the game wore on, especially with a guy like Chase Young coming back very conveniently for the Penn State game. Um, I think that Penn State had a couple breaks go their way. They couldn't quite capitalize. I think that for the first couple drives of the Will Levis at quarterback, it benefited Penn State. But then I think towards the end, once they made those adjustments, I think he's not the thrower that Clifford is. He's a decent runner, but he's not the thrower that Clifford is, and I think you started to see that. I think that when it was 28-17 and Penn State was driving, I think they were at the 27. I feel like Clifford might hit Hamler. If Penn State goes down and scores a touchdown, even a field goal, it's a one-score game. If it's 28-24, 28-20, they got a game, and I think that was the difference between really keeping it close. And then Ohio State was able to get a big drive. Penn State just wasn't able to finish drives off. I think overall, when you look at this game, I think Penn State had a decent chance. But they're a little young. This is a really young team going up against a really, really good Ohio State team. I think Penn State has some talent. It's just not at Ohio State's level. I think that was the difference in the game. I think this game could have easily been 35-13, honestly. But I think Penn State did some nice things. They didn't quit. You got to give it to them. They get Rutgers next week. Should almost be a definite win. 10-2 would be a very strong season for this Penn State team. I think you got to take that. I know Penn State fans, and it's just another failed season for Penn State with their playoff aspirations. But you have to look at this team from the big picture. When you have like 6 or 7 underclassmen offensive starters, it's very tough to make a college football playoff push when you're playing Michigan and Ohio State. in that season. So that's what I got for this video. So that's going to be a wrap, guys. Peace out.